Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here on the Inside Scoop. Tonight, we have with us a very special guest. We have with us Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy, who is the Virginia State Senator over District 33. Senator Carroll Foy, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So we know that you're a veteran. You're a veteran of Inside Scoop. You've been here before.
I've been here a few times.
Just a few times. So thank you so much for coming back out and giving us an idea. So we're going to talk about what you want to accomplish in 2025, why folks should get out the vote for November, all kinds of things. Awesome. So, but before we dive into everything, there's something that you and I have in common. I was raised by my grandmother as well.
Yes. Yes.
So I have my own anecdotes that I get from my grandmother. She'll be 98 in November, 98 years young. So do you have any anecdotes, or how has being raised by your grandmother, how has that impacted your outlook or your perspective on your work?
Absolutely. So I think when you're raised by your grandparents, you tend to have an old soul. The maturation process happened a lot quicker. And so by the time I came along, my grandparents had the husband-wife routine down pack, right? So there wasn't much mischief that I could cause that they didn't anticipate. So it was really a boring childhood in that respect. But they instilled a strong faith in me. I was in church 3 days a week, so I had Bible study, I had children's church, had regular church. And so my grandmother always told me that if you have it, then you have to give it. And so that's where that spirit comes from, of always wanting to help those less fortunate. That is our job and the price that we pay for our time here on earth, to house the homeless and to feed the hungry. And so that's what I've committed my life to as a public defender, as a former foster mom, and the work that I do. If you look at the bills and budgets that I carry and try to pass, it's all about helping the less fortunate of us have a fair shake, where everyone in Virginia has an opportunity to thrive, that your zip code shouldn't dictate your status in life, and that everyone deserves an opportunity to have the American dream, whether you were born here or not, whether you're black or brown or green. None of those things matter. What matters is that you are here and that you deserve all the protections and rights and everything that everyone else does.
That's right. It's so interesting. My grandmother, too, she instilled that sense of community, that you help other people. I think it was, akin to the environment that she was raised in. She was born in 1926, so that's good that I get that. I understand.
Yes.
So speaking of the work that you do for your community, so specifically for your district, District 33 is about 60% Prince William County and around 40% Fairfax County.
That's right.
So what are some of the maybe similarities or differences between those two locations, and how does that impact your approach to helping those who voted for you?
Yes, I have one of the most socially economic diverse districts in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. And so it's very unique that way, but we have a lot of intersectionality and shared values and shared interests. Everyone is worried about community safety and sending their child to a safe, well-funded school. Everyone cares about traffic on 95 and Route 1, and that no one should spend 2 hours to go 20 miles to get to work. Affordable housing is a huge topic right now, and if we really address that in a substantive way, that could address a number of issues, whether it's greenhouse gas, whether in carbon, whether it is people being able to afford to live where they work. It gets cars off of the road. It addresses so many other issues. And these are the things that I hear not only in Fairfax, but in Prince William as well, that people want to be safe in their communities, they want their freedoms protected, and they want to know that their voices are heard when they have concerns. And one thing I can say is that in Fairfax and Prince William specifically, the people are unafraid to speak their minds and share what their concerns are. And they have amazing elected officials who are very responsive.
Wow. Something you said a couple seconds ago, you mentioned your work as a public defender. I'm not sure if a lot of people realize the benefit that is on your perspective of that side of the law, and then how that informed your perspective as a legislator, as a lawmaker. So share how your work as a public offender informs your work.
Absolutely. So I was the first, and I am still the only public defender ever elected to the Virginia General Assembly, something I'm extremely proud of. Because when I walk into those rooms, I am the lone voice who understands the collateral consequences a lot of the bills that we try to implement will have. So while there may be good intentioned, I understand that everything we do not only impacts that person accused of a crime, but their family. And when you lock up someone, you're not locking them up, you're locking up their children, you're locking up their parents. And so every day a person spends in jail can have reverberations throughout their entire life, even with, for example, cash bail, having those conversations. That just because a person has to pay $100, that don't make our community safer and doesn't make them less likely to commit another offense. So if a person's sitting in jail and they have a $100 bond or a $1,000 bond, they're sitting there because they're too poor to pay for their freedom. Right? And so we should not have debtor's prison here in Virginia or anywhere in this country. So let's have common sense, evidence-based solutions to our problems, especially when we're talking about criminal justice reform or we're talking about keeping our streets safe, things that work and not just fear-mongering. And I think bringing that voice to the table and saying things like we can't incarcerate ourselves out of addiction. We need more resources and money for mental health and also for drug treatment and counseling. I don't know anyone who has a family member who's not impacted by one or both of those things. So help is needed, and it shouldn't just be for the wealthy, it should be for all of us. Justice shouldn't be just for us, it should be for everyone. And so bringing that type of thinking and that voice down to Richmond, where we create the bills and budgets that impact everyone's life, July 1st, every year, no matter what, is extremely important.
Wow. I think it's so important that everything you just mentioned, addiction, cash bail, those are national issues. So I'm super thankful for the work that you do in Richmond, but these are issues that every American is affected by and every American should care about. It's so interesting. I was having a conversation with someone a couple days ago, actually about a conversation I had with the executive director of the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project, and she brought to light that since they started in 2000, of the 44 people that they've helped, those 44 people served 883 years. Served those 44 people. America is just over 200 years old, to put things in context. So
Absolutely.
that you're absolutely right. Like what you do absolutely informs the work that you do in the General Assembly.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. So speaking of the work that you do, let's talk about Senate Bill 489 about affordable housing.
Okay.
That's something that you mentioned recently. It's a new law that's been put in place in Virginia.
Yes.
So what is that?
Absolutely. So one of the top issues for the future Vice President Harris and Governor Walz's administration is affordable housing. And so I'm excited to say in Virginia, we are taking that head on, and I'm excited to say I passed a bill to help address that. When I'm having conversations with developers saying that we need more affordable housing in our communities, one of the biggest barriers is the cost for infrastructure. So affordable housing in and of itself is not necessarily profitable. That's why you have more of the homes built on multiple acres because they cost more and they have a bigger return on profit. But what's happening is the fact that interest rates are high. You have people who are not moving out of their starter homes, and so there is no upward mobility for a lot of 20, 30, even 40-year-olds. So we need more affordable housing. We are in the deficit of thousands of homes. So making infrastructure more affordable for developers is a top priority because whatever we can do to incentivize them to build more affordable homes, that's exactly what we want to do. And when we say affordable, we literally mean, you go by people's income. We need more workforce housing for our teachers, firefighters, our law enforcement officers, so they can also live in the communities that they serve. It's extremely important, and I think it's something that's starting to resonate more, that you have more people feeling the effects of being priced out of the market and not being able to build generational wealth and legacy through home ownership.
So you sponsored this bill.
I sure did.
So how did you, explain to people the process of I'm not sure if people think you sleep at night and the bill fairies give you ideas while you sleep.
Yeah.
Right. So how did you come to realize this is something that Virginians need?
I'm excited to say that I started off in politics back when Barack Obama first ran for office as a door knocker and canvasser. So knocking doors and speaking to constituents and voters, that's my jam. It's something I enjoy doing. I love hearing people's concerns, answering their questions. And that is something that I just kept hearing over and over and over again, that I can't afford to live where I work. I'm sitting in traffic for an hour and a half because I can't afford to do anything else. My friends are at home doing their daughter's hair, cooking dinner. They're about to go in for the night and I haven't even made it home yet. Those are the stories that I'm talking about and I'm talking to Virginians about. And it's a quality of life issue. And so putting in that bill only made sense to find out how can we problem solve? What is the real issue? So making sure that we can make affordable housing more affordable for developers to build and incentivize them to do that. But also working with our local county boards and having a revisit of the local ordinances that sometimes don't allow or permit affordable housing in certain communities or workforce housing. So that's exactly where most of my bills come. It comes from everyday conversations with everyday people.
And I appreciate how it's important that different areas within our governments work together, as you mentioned, county ordinances and how that matters, and people who work in those spaces understand what Virginians need or their constituents need. So that's pretty awesome. Also, so there's another bill that you mentioned on your. I looked at your social media, and I social media stalked you.
That's all right.
So SB 660.
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. About drug pricing.
Yes.
Now that's something that soon-to-be President Kamala Harris mentioned about the work that the White House has done to make certain drugs more affordable. Can you talk a bit about specifically how this bill that you sponsored helps Virginians?
Absolutely. So when you look at the drug pricing and how that happens, you have the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers, and what they do is that they're the intermediary between the drug producers and manufacturers and basically the health insurers. And what happens is sometimes they increase the cost of what they want a prescription drug to be, and what my bill does is create more transparency around that and says, no, we're not going to continue to hike up these costs for our seniors and people who need medications to survive. We need transparency so we can negotiate good, fair prices for everyone.
Wow. Please make sure you don't go anywhere as we continue our conversation with Senator Jennifer Carroll.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
Oh, Dad, wait till you see the bike we got for Jake.
Hearing loss happens gradually with age, making it easy to ignore. Yet most older Americans aren't getting their hearing tested. Untreated hearing loss can keep your loved ones from enjoying what they cherish most.
Dad, can you hear me?
Don't let that happen. Speak up about hearing loss. You'll be glad you did.
You can't buy a best friend. You can love them, pet them, care for them, whether they want you to or not. You can take a picture, you can jump, yell, you can fly to the moon, travel the world, or just stay in bed. You can't buy a best friend like that, but you can adopt one. 'Cause we're connected.
Cook foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Thank you so much for joining us back here on the Inside Scoop as we continue our conversation with Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy. So Senator Carroll Foy, when we left off, before we went into the last break, we were talking about the drug pricing bill and the importance of that and providing access to important prescriptions for Virginians.
That's right. So making sure that we have the transparency that's necessary so we can see how much the PBMs, if they are jacking up prices, because that gets carried over to the consumer, to the patient, to the person who needs the treatment for cancer, to the person who needs to afford their diabetic medication. I mean, all of these things are important, and we want to make sure that we keep prescription costs affordable for families. So I've been in this situation when my grandmother had a stroke and became a quadriplegic, and having to sit at the dining room table with my aunt trying to decide if we're going to pay for our mortgage that month or for the medications to keep her alive. And I don't think any person should ever be in that type of predicament, have to make that type of decision. My grandmother could not retire in dignity, even though she worked her entire life pretty much as a healthcare worker, right? So we say that essential workers matter, we say that all folks matter, then we have to put in policies to reflect that. And ensuring that people can afford their life-saving medications is top priority. And I know it's a top priority for the Harris-Walz administration, or will be, because they've already capped insulin. We have in Virginia as well. And they are looking forward to doing even more and shoring up the Affordable Care Act in a great way. We expanded Medicaid in Virginia to over 500,000 Virginians. One of the things I'm most proud of, to be a part of that effort and that vote to get that done. And if we want to continue those protections, then we need to keep good people in office.
Absolutely. So kind of carrying over or continuing in the vein of protection when it comes to prescriptions. So there's also Senate Bill 498, which is also on your social media. And if anyone wants to follow Senator Carroll Foy on Instagram, the tag is going to be at the bottom of the screen. But opioids and school alerts. Tell us about your work in that.
I'm really proud of this bill because that's now law. It was done in a bipartisan fashion. So working closely with Governor Youngkin to ensure that if there is a school-connected overdose, that the parents are notified immediately.
Wow.
We don't want weeks and months to go by, because parents should be able to be fully informed if there's a dangerous drug that is circulating around their child's school, so they can have informed conversations with their children at the dining room table about drug use and to not, take anything that anyone gives them. So it's really important to keep parents informed, to keep parents involved, and this was done in a fabulous bipartisan fashion, something I'm really excited about.
You would think that something like that, informing a parent if their child experienced an overdose, you would think that that would be automatic, that a parent would be informed. Was that not?
Well, I think some questions or concerns was just we wanted to make sure we protect the student's privacy, of course.
Of course.
And that we didn't demonize or vilify children or students to keep them from discussing or talking about what happened. But what's most important is that we have to move quickly. We've had instances in Virginia where children were in school and they shared a drug and many of them overdosed.
Oh my gosh.
And we never want that to happen. So ensuring that we educate our kids is extremely important, but having informed parents is just as important.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you for that. I think people, like I just did, we forget that students and young people have a right to their privacy as well. But there's a threshold when it comes to protecting them, their safety, and this bill does that.
That's right.
So there's another bill.
Yes.
Like I said, I did my research.
Yes.
So there's Senate Bill 140 about the Fetal and Infant Mortality Review Team. I thought that was really interesting that you're putting work in place to make sure that folks, it says specifically it establishes the Fetal and Infant Mortality Review Team to develop and implement procedures to ensure that fetal and infant deaths occurring in the Commonwealth are analyzed in a systemic way. Why was this important?
Well, we know that African American women specifically are dying at a rate of 3 to 4 times higher than all of our other counterparts in childbirth and postpartum. These are needless deaths in the wealthiest country in the world, in one of the richest states in the nation, that definitely should not be happening. But even here in our Commonwealth of Virginia, it is. And so putting forth the efforts, kind of like Congresswoman Lauren Underwood is doing in her great work, especially with the Momnibus, working in tandem with that type of bill, those types of bills is extremely important, because we have a lot that we can get done here in the Commonwealth, whether it is implicit bias training for our OBGYNs, whether it is ensuring, one of my bills, that breast milk is covered by Medicaid and private health insurance, so our micro preemies and our premature babies receive the best nutrients that they could possibly get, which is human donor breast milk.
Wow. So people can donate their breast milk and it's covered by...
Well, not yet. That's where we're trying to get to.
Wow.
That's right. That's right.
Amazing.
And you can see now that there's a number of lawsuits that's been filed in other states, because cow's milk has been used and been given to micropreemies and children who are very susceptible to illness and ailments, and that has not gone well. Some babies have died.
Oh my gosh.
And that is exactly why bills like my breast milk coverage for Medicaid and private health insurance is so important. We have to protect our babies. Infant mortality cannot happen on anyone's watch, and this will go very far to do that. And so this mortality review team will take a holistic look at who's passing away, why, when, and they'll do data sets. They'll do a deep dive to collect the information so we can make evidence-based decisions about this is what's happening and this is why and this is what we need to do about it. One of the greatest things about my job is being a problem solver, right? And no mom and no infant should be dying on my watch or anyone's watch.
Wow. So is on this human milk donation.
Yes.
So is this something that's happening right now? Wow.
So right now there's a number of lawsuits because the cow's milk, oftentimes people believe, has been branded as safer than it really truly is. But that's where my bill comes in and says, no, human donor breast milk with a fortifier is the best thing you can give a baby, especially a preemie and a micro preemie. And so sometimes it can be unattainable. So to make it for people who can't afford it, such as those on Medicaid, but also those who can, because they should have access to the best food and nutrients that we can give a baby who is already struggling to survive.
Yeah, and sometimes moms might struggle to make milk.
That's correct.
And no one should have to feel bad for biology.
That's right.
Doing what it does.
That's right.
Or what it doesn't do sometimes. So that's amazing. Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, so we talked about Senate Bill 489. So we talked about the work that you're doing to make sure there's affordable housing, the work that you're doing to make sure that there isn't price gouging with prescriptions, and making sure that parents are aware of opioid deaths in schools, as well as the infant mortality review team. So it's a lot of success that you've had as a senator, but I think sometimes we forget that sometimes bills don't go through.
Yes.
So as I said, I did some research, and I noticed that there were at least a couple of bills that were vetoed by the governor that you sponsored that I want to chat about.
Sure.
One of them is Senate Bill 716. It's called Unprofessional Conduct, Disciplinary Action Against a Doctor for Providing Abortion Care. And just on the website, if anyone wants to look at the legislative, is it the LIS, Legislative
That's right.
Information System? Yes, you can look it up if you want more information. But it's Senate Bill 716 that was vetoed by Governor Youngkin, and the description starts out, and it's for what it's about. It prohibits the Board of Medicine from taking disciplinary action against a doctor based on the alleged provision or receipt of abortion care that is not prohibited under the laws of the Commonwealth, regardless of where such abortion care was provided or received. So I know folks are just like, what? What does that even mean? What was the context of this before we get into why Governor Youngkin vetoed it?
Absolutely. So what it means is that you will not lock up our doctors who are providing safe, legal access to reproductive health care in the form of abortion. We won't do that. No, we're not doing that. In Virginia, we are one of the last states, southern states, that a person can receive abortion care. And there has been an effort for some Republicans to criminalize and incarcerate doctors for doing the things that they are charged to do, which is to perform healthcare services. And we all know that abortion care is between a pregnant person and their and her doctor, hard stop, right? And anything that's going to interfere with that, anything you're going to do to try to lock up women, doctors, it protects patients, it protects doctors. And it says as long as they are practicing, you cannot threaten to pull their license for practicing abortion or reproductive health care. And we are not going to allow you to criminalize it as well. So it goes in the vein of what the Harris-Walz administration will also be pushing for, and that is access. That is ensuring that we are not having pregnant people dying on the side of the road because they have a fetus that's not going to make it, putting their life in danger. But at the end of the day, it's about bodily autonomy. And protecting everyone, and that means their choices and their right to privacy and their freedom and their constitutional rights. And this is one of the bills that was brought forth this last legislative session in a package of bills that the Democrats brought forth to say not on our time, not on our watch. We will protect abortion care in Virginia, and I'm excited to say in the next session we will be bringing forth a constitutional amendment to protect abortion care in Virginia.
Absolutely. And just the description of this bill, it's a need, it's a necessity. But when I read the governor's veto, his reason, it's all listed there if you want to do some research. One thing that I found troubling was that within his explanation it says this bill also opens the door to a resurgence of unsafe, risky abortions occurring outside of clinical settings, and it places any unprofessional behavior during an abortion outside the board's jurisdiction for disciplinary action. I did not read it that way.
Neither did I. And it wasn't written that way either.
Yeah. It's so interesting. There was someone who I was speaking with recently, and they were asked about where they stand when it comes to abortion care. And he said, well, you know, in Virginia, abortions are, they're legal here. So Virginians have nothing to worry about. And I think that was such a smokescreen. We do. It's important that we vote and we put people in place that understand a woman's right to choose and have jurisdiction over her own body.
That's right.
So don't go anywhere. We'll continue our conversation with Senator Jennifer Carroll, and I promise she'll talk more in the next segment.
Nice going, Spencer! I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Remember me and your well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's a matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about Rick Dodd, nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again. But an awkward silence can be a great thing, like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Thank you so much for joining us back here on the Inside Scoop as we continue our conversation with Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy. When we left off, we were talking about how, unfortunately, Governor Youngkin vetoed Senate Bill 716, which essentially protected doctors who provided abortion care. And I was saying how in his reason that's listed on LIS, he says that this bill also opens the door for a resurgence of unsafe and risky abortions, and that's not necessarily the language within the bill.
Not the language, not the spirit, nor the intent. And so I think for a person to read the bill, you will see it's clearly to protect providers who provide abortion care within their agency, and that they're supposed to provide this care. In Virginia, it is safe and it is legal, and we want it to continue to be that. But we have some Republicans, unfortunately, who has taken upon themselves to make it an issue to criminalize and demonize not only providers, but patients as well. That given the opportunity, they would lock up a pregnant person. They would collect data about her travel, her going to the abortion clinic, get those medical records and use it to prosecute her and put her in jail. And we're not going to allow that to happen in Virginia. We are a place where people can come to receive the reproductive health care and execute the bodily autonomy. That is their constitutional right. And so that bill is one of many that we put forth to ensure that we shore up abortion care here in our Commonwealth. And I'm really excited about the constitutional amendment that we'll be bringing forth to make it crystal clear what our North Star is. And it's protecting people's freedoms at all costs. And we want to make sure that our constitutional amendment here in Virginia reflects that as well.
So before we left off, I was talking about how someone mentioned because abortions are accessible here in Virginia, Virginians have nothing to worry about. And I think that's a bit of a smokescreen from a state and a national perspective. Why is it important for people to make sure that this is that nationally women have access to abortion care?
We have to remember that freedom is not free. Democracy is a verb. It is about action. So we have to vote the people in office who will ensure that our constitutional protections and our civil liberties are protected at all costs. We know that, for example, Trump with the Project 2025, that was a policy package created by the Heritage Foundation. Over 200 folks from the White House and Trump's administration helped create this. Trump has previously supported and endorsed it, have said that there will be a national abortion ban. And we want to be crystal clear. Many people thought that Roe would never fall, right? That the two of us now have less rights as far as our bodily autonomy than our great-grandmothers did.
Wow.
That is the landscape. That is where we are. And so making sure that everyone understands what's on the ballot coming this November is extremely important. We know that with a Harris and Walz administration, they will shore up abortion rights. We know that we will work hard to ensure that our Supreme Court is reflective of justices who have autonomy, who understands and respects presidents, who will follow the rule of law and ethics. It's just a matter of, at this point, in my opinion, right and wrong, freedom and lack of freedom, a dictatorship, or not having a dictatorship. I mean, we have a presidential candidate who has said, if you vote for me, when he was speaking to a number of Christians, if you vote for me, you will never have to vote another election. That's what's at stake. I mean, we have elections every year in Virginia, and they're all important. But this one is like no other. This is the most consequential election of our lifetimes.
Yes.
And I need everyone to know and understand what's at stake and why it's important. And while the General Assembly members, including myself, will do all that we can to protect everyone's freedoms, when things are implemented on the federal level, that can trump what happens in the states. And then that's where you can have a lot of problems, right? So states' rights, we're going back to segregation, right? We're talking about not being able to love who you want to love, right? Loving the Virginia. A lot of these practices were put in place by the states and the federal government who can do good things, but it's the federal government who can do not so good things as well. So keeping that in mind and making sure we have responsible people leading this country who understands how this country should work, what's at stake. With a Trump administration, we could end up in 3 simultaneous wars. The geopolitical landscape looks a lot different. And that is because we've had the failure of a Trump administration, and now we hopefully will have a Harris-Walz administration to, continue the good work that the Harris and Biden administration has started.
Absolutely. I think it's just, everything that you just said was so key. And I think that sometimes we take our roles as voters for granted, that we don't have to stay informed, that we don't have to understand what the process is, that we don't have to understand relationships between different federal and state and local entities, that we absolutely, not only do we have to, we must.
That's right.
For the survival of our democracy. Our democracy, as you said, it's a verb, and it would not exist without us, without our participation.
That's right.
So thank you so much for that wonderful explanation. So during our break, someone from our control room asked, can the governor veto a bill on an amendment?
That is a really good question, and no, we cannot. So we have the resolution that will pass and has to pass 2 consecutive General Assembly sessions, because it has to be an intervening election in between. And then it goes straight to Virginia voters as a referendum for them to vote on, which is really exciting. And so, no, the governor will not be able to veto or have any say in what the resolution and hopefully the referendum will be.
That's wonderful. That's good news.
Yes.
That's something to hope for. One more piece of legislation that you introduced that unfortunately was vetoed by the governor is Senate Bill 491. It says firearm industry members creates standards of responsible conduct and civil liability. And the description says it creates, this particular bill, creates standards of responsible conduct for firearm industry members and requires such members to establish and implement reasonable controls regarding the manufacturing, the sale, distribution, use, and marketing of the firearm industry members' firearm-related products. It's a lot of words. But it was vetoed. It just sounds like it's ensuring that firearm manufacturers behave appropriately and safely for Virginians.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
So in this country, we pretty much regulate everything from tables to tires to teddy bears, but we do not regulate the gun industry and gun manufacturers the way that we should and hold them responsible for reckless and negligent conduct. And we need to, because no one is above the law, including the gun industry. And so what this bill does is it holds them accountable. So when they market towards 7-year-olds to pick up an automatic weapon and have at it, then yes, we will hold you accountable, right? Because this is the United States of America, and that's what we do, and that's what we should do. At the end of the day, it's really unfortunate. I anticipated the governor would veto this. But the thing that's lost on me with the Republicans is that they would rather ban books in our schools than assault weapons. And, I don't understand that.
Sure.
So to have 2 7-year-olds in our public schools in Prince William County, there isn't a day that I don't think about the fact that I'm sending my children off with the hope and the prayer and the faith that they will return, that they will come back, that I won't get that, phone call that says there is an active shooter at your children's school. I think about that mom in Texas when there was the school shooting happening and the police told her, you can't go past this barrier. She jumped the barrier, over fences, through a window to get her child.
That's right.
Right? No one should have to experience that. But I can tell you that would be me. Okay? And so it shouldn't be. And I don't want it to be. And every parent should be able to sleep well at night knowing that their child is safe and secure, and you can send them off to school and know that they're going to return home the way that you sent them. And that's what this is really about. It's something that I think is practical, it's pragmatic, it makes sense to say, hey, gun manufacturing industry, we will hold you the same set of standards that we do everything else.
Sure. So his rationale, the governor's rationale for vetoing it, he said the federal protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, PLCAA, already provides a framework for addressing civil actions against the firearms industry concerning negligent entrustment and defects. Is that a smokescreen, or why? Is it justifiable, his reason for vetoing?
No, it's not. If what we need to happen would happen, then there would be lawsuits, and there have been lawsuits, and the lawsuits have failed because the gun manufacturing industry enjoys a shielding of liability that no other industry enjoys, and that's just the fact.
Wow. You a couple of minutes ago, when you were talking about the mom in Uvalde, Texas, we were all watching the news and looking at those parents waiting for someone to rescue their children, but they were waiting behind a wall of law enforcement. There was the tragedy in Uvalde was so preventable at so many levels.
Absolutely.
But as you mentioned, it's so much easier for someone to buy a gun than the process to buy a gun is exponentially smaller than signing up for food assistance. That's insane.
It is.
And so Virginia lawmakers, your Democrats in the General Assembly, so is this something that you all are going to reintroduce?
Oh, absolutely. We're not going to stop. We're not going to stop fighting. We're not going to stop protecting. We're not going to stop uplifting. We're not going to stop continuing to fund businesses and, make sure people can work one job and put food on the table. I mean, these are all the things that we hear from our voters on a daily basis. I know that my job is to be the voice of my community, that Virginians are my employer. And one of the great things that I take a lot of satisfaction in, and that a lot of Virginians should as well, is that you have a lot of elected officials who feel the same way. So we are never going to stop until every child is safe, until we eradicate this culture, this gun culture that we have that's rampant. And, no one's trying to get rid of guns. We understand the Second Amendment. But at the end of the day, we are having 6 and 7-year-olds dying needlessly, bringing guns to school. They can get it as easily as they can go into a corner store and buy some candy. And that is absolutely unacceptable. We need our streets to be safe. We need our schools to be safe. And Democrats, we will never stop fighting.
What do you say to someone who, oh gosh, you have a few more seconds left.
Sure.
I was going to ask, and you can answer this question when you get back. What do you say to someone that the solution is to arm teachers? We'll answer that when we come back. So again, make sure you join us. Don't go anywhere. Stay here, look at these PSAs, and we'll be right back to continue our conversation with Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy.
So, with his family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things. 2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks. Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh, no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school.
Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
I know.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
And thank you so much for joining us back here on the Inside Scoop as we begin to conclude our conversation with Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy. Before we left off, I was asking, what do you say to someone who thinks that the solution to children bringing guns to school and dying of gun violence in any capacity, but especially in schools, what do you say to someone who thinks that the solution is to arm teachers?
I think it's asinine. I think it's nonsensical. You know, it's like saying the way to solve the problem with drugs, the opioid epidemic, is with more opioids. That it doesn't solve the problem, right? And so we have to regulate guns in the way that we regulate anything else in interstate commerce in a way that we can ensure that the least amount of hurt and harm happens to the communities. We have to help to change the gun culture that we have in this country. We have to put in place more violence interruption programs in our urban communities because this is nothing new. Right? I grew up in a community where it was not uncommon to go to sleep at night to the sound of gunshots, right? And no one should grow up in that type of situation, to have friends and family that you've lost to gun violence. But that is the culture that we're in. That's where we are. And so ensuring that we put in common sense measures that has bipartisan support, that I know the Harris-Walz administration will support as well, such as closing the gun show loophole, red flag laws, so people who are suffering from severe mental illness and have communicated a desire to harm themselves and others, their weapons are temporarily separated from them, and they are to receive treatment. We know that suicide by guns is one of the leading causes of gun violence. So anything that we can do to interrupt that, because we know if someone has readily access, then the more likely they are to successfully execute their plan to terminate their life. So these are some of the things that we know that are evidence-based from the work of so many great organizations, whether it's Moms to Be in Action or Brady or Everytown, who have done the work and the research to say these are practical, pragmatic, common sense solutions and bills that we can put in place to mitigate the hurt and harm so many communities are feeling from gun violence.
Wow. So speaking of so I'm getting ahead of myself, but we've mentioned the Harris-Walz campaign.
Yes.
They're doing such great work. We want to extend that work and continue that work here in Virginia. November is right around the corner. What can folks do to get more involved?
I'm so happy you asked. So I can tell you the Harris-Walz campaign is doing a phenomenal job here in Virginia, led by a number of amazing folks. And if you go to the Kamala Harris website, go to volunteer, you should come up on the Virginia specific page, and you can find on Mobilize all the places that you can go to knock doors or to donate or to do whatever is needed in order to ensure that the right things happens in November. So we need your time, your talent, your treasure, because this is going to be, a close election. Many people believe that, it's going to be a slam dunk either way. I don't agree. I think a couple of thousand votes will make the difference between this election, and we know what's at stake. So we can go with a Vice President Harris and Governor Walz administration, where we know that they will protect our freedoms and uplift communities, that we will have a opportunity economy, where we continue to build on all the amazing things that the Biden-Harris administration has done, whether it's the infrastructure bill to help build our roads, bridges, and rural broadband, to the Build Back Better bill, to where you see from COVID, every world economy was affected by inflation, but we recovered the fastest and the best. We see now that we have a place where job growth is up and serious violent crime is down. That's what you get when Democrats lead and Democrats are in charge. Democrats did that, right? And so we need to continue that trajectory, and we know how dangerous a Trump administration will be. The Project 2025 is the policy playbook of what will happen, whether it's a national abortion ban, whether it's 20,000 civil servants being terminated on day one, so so-called loyalists can enter our federal government. These are people who have dedicated their life to committing to our safety and security who will be terminated for no other reason than a dictator saying so. We can't have that. We know that he will give tax breaks to billionaires and corporations while the rest of us in the middle class fit the bill, and that is unacceptable. And the gutting of Medicaid, the termination of Medicaid and the gutting of Medicare and Social Security, day one. Day one. So the choice can be more clear. We have to make sure that the right thing happens. I think that I do agree with President Trump's vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, when he has said in the past that Trump is unfit and he's a fraud and should not be in any office. That is what Trump's own VP has previously said about him, and I hands down agree. So we should follow the tune of J.D. Vance and ensure that we do not support or elect Trump and his administration. Even now when they're trying to deflect and distract, talking about eating dogs and cats, we like to say now as Democrats that when the Republicans go weird, we go waltz.
I like that.
So let's make sure we have the right thing happen and get a Harris-Walz administration in there. We need an adult in the room. We need a former teacher in a room.
Sure.
We need a coach in a room who's going to call the plays of how we build an economy that works for everybody. So I'm really excited about it, and thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Absolutely. Going back to what you said a couple minutes ago about this likely being a close race, that means literally every single vote counts.
Absolutely.
Last Friday, I took my dad to vote for the very first time in his life, and I have every intention of calling any other family member, do you need a ride? Do you need me to explain ballot initiatives? What do you need me to do? So do you recommend, and I know the answer to this, do you recommend that folks have this buddy system? Call everyone in your circle and make sure that they have a voting plan.
Absolutely. So make a plan, take a friend. That's what we're telling everyone. Make a plan, take a friend. Because if you have a plan to vote on election day, you're more likely to execute that plan than if you do not.
Sure.
So are you going to vote before you go out for the day or after? What time? What does that look like? Who are you going to take with you? Because it's not just about you showing up. It's about your barber showing up. It's about your child care workers showing up. We know that in this last election, millions of people voted, but approximately 81 million people did not.
Wow.
We need those votes. We need those folks to show up because your vote matters, your voice counts, you matter, right? And so doing all we can to get as many people to turn out, because I tell you, it's gonna be close. We need to send a clear message.
That's right.
Where our values are, who we are as a people and as a country, because the world is watching and we want our voices to be very clear where we stand.
Absolutely. Okay, so they can go to, is it KamalaHarris.com?
Yes, just Google Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Go to her website.
Yes.
Go to volunteer. You can go to Mobilize, click on Kamala and Harris and Governor Walz, and you can see where you can volunteer as well. You can go to iwillvote.com and you can find out your local polling place. So early voting has already started in Virginia, so you can cast your ballot. If you are not doing a mail-in ballot, you can do that as well. Or if not, we'll see you on Election Day.
Absolutely. So folks don't have to wait until Election Day. They can vote early right now. Perfect. Okay, so before we close out and get to my favorite part of the show, everyone knows what that is. So in the 2025 Virginia session, I know that there's going to be you touched on it a bit earlier, increasing minimum wage. You're going to do some work on that. And a constitutional amendment, was that for reproductive rights or?
We are taking care, we're checking all the boxes.
Okay.
So we have a constitutional amendment coming up for marriage equality. We have one to protect the right to abortion. And then we also have another one for automatic restoration of voting rights.
Wow. That's amazing. So you all going to hit the ground running.
Listen, we take care of business in Virginia.
Okay. Is this going to be an extended, like a long session, or is this
Short session.
A short session,
Yeah,
okay.
we have campaigns and elections to get to, and I would encourage everyone to support these House of Delegate races.
Yes.
We have not had consecutive majorities in the House of Delegates in decades.
Wow.
So if we continue to want great things to happen, we need you to show up and show out and vote and donate and do all the things to ensure that we can bring the House back and have a Democratic control in 2025. And we have Democrats up and down the ballot statewide as well.
Fantastic. Senator Carroll Foy, I've enjoyed our conversation. Make sure you look up her information. It's going to be at the bottom of the screen. Social media, websites. We know what we can do to support the Harris Walls campaign. So my favorite part of the show, I like to give viewers an opportunity to get to know who you are, the things that make us chuckle, the things that make us tick.
Yes.
So, okay, first question. Would you rather speak, Senator Carroll Foy, would you rather speak 10 languages or play 10 instruments?
I think I would rather speak 10 languages.
Okay.
Mayor Pete, he will always forever be my forever Mayor Pete, speaks like 7. And I think that is so
amazing.
It is, yeah, I think it's super amazing. So super impressive.
Yeah.
So I think I would like to speak 10.
Okay. I think I do the same. So I speak English, Spanish, Hebrew, taught myself Russian.
Oh, wow.
So I got 4.
Okay.
Got 4.
Okay.
So I'm almost halfway there.
Yes, you
With the
are,
10.
clearly.
Okay.
Clearly.
If you could make an office rule that everyone had to follow for a day,
yes,
what would it be?
Try to give this a lot of thought, be
Okay.
very intentional and deliberate about this answer. I think I would have, I'm a public defender, so I have a very eccentric bunch in my office, and I think they'll go for it. So I think every time you walk past my office, you would have to sing your favorite 90s R&B song, right?
I love it.
So I think I want some Boyz II Men.
Okay.
Yes, I want some.
With the moves and the dance too?
Yes, I want some Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation. Okay. Yes.
That is
absolutely.
amazing. So for me, you would have to, every time you walk past my door, you would have to recite the first 5 to 10 seconds of Rapper's Delight.
Yes.
Hip, a hop, hip, hip to hip, hop, hop. Yep.
Don't stop.
Every time.
That is fantastic.
That's the requirement. Okay.
Yes.
Next question. What is the best piece of feedback you've ever received?
I think for me is to focus on the things you can control and let everything else go. Yeah.
Absolutely. The best piece of feedback I've received is no is a complete sentence.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Oh my gosh, it's time already. Okay, let's see. Last question. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Because I can't carry a tune with the bucket, I actually got kicked out of the choir. I didn't think that was a thing, but I did. They was like, baby, we need you to usher. So help people get to their seats because you can't carry nothing. I would have to say I'll Always Love You by Whitney Houston because it's absolutely awful, and so it's great.
Thank you so much, Senator Carroll Foy. You've been such a great sport in this. And thank you so much for joining us here at Inside Scoop. We'll see you next week with our next guest.